Most listened to sports radio. 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
All right, welcome in, everybody. Happy Thursday to you on Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor, Jad Chambers with us, manning that IHOP hotline for you. Fueled up by our Prairie Fire coffee. Appreciate Prairie Fire for always keeping us hydrated, caffeinated on the mornings here at KFH. Appreciate you being with us. Again, that IHOP hotline is open, 869-1240. Love our buddy Tim Fitzgerald, our K-State insider, coming up a little later in the show. We'll check in on the Wildcats and their NIL adventures in both football and basketball. I haven't been paying a lot of attention to the football portal right now. All attention sort of on basketball, but football, I believe, is now open for business. We'll get the latest from Fitz on that and maybe some other things. We have the NFL draft now officially, right? 7 days away, 1 week. This time next week, we will be on an official draft day looking at what I contend will be a very, very dramatic first round. We'll get into some of that today. Denver Broncos in the news a little bit, continue to evaluate what the Chiefs need to do. The Royals in a doubleheader yesterday. All kinds of good stuff. We have a lifetime ban, a Pete Rose situation in the National Basketball Association we can get into a little bit as well. Tommy, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. Busy day. A lot to get to this morning. I feel like from the time that I left my house this morning and the time that I got here at the radio station, the temperature dropped like 20 degrees. That cold front came through. It's windy. It's breezy. It's a far cry from yesterday's weather. That's for sure. So you might need to grab a jacket on your way out the door today.
Yeah. It's it got chilly for us here. It is a weird time of year, I think, because it's the NBA playoffs, Tom. It does not feel like the NBA playoffs to me yet. Maybe that's just because we're in these play-in games as we have the official field, sort of falling into play. But it's draft season to me. Like that's I don't think I'm the only one on that, but like to me, it's draft season right now. And the NBA playoffs are there, but it's Major League Baseball season. This draft, man, like I can't get enough of the intrigue building up into it. The big thing yesterday that caught my attention is that the Denver Broncos, according to some reports, which means, somebody's putting it out there, are ready to move up in this draft and take a quarterback, are willing perhaps to trade Patrick Surtain, who they almost traded last year, who's a rock star and would bring quite a bit, I think. I'm telling you, so now if they're in the mix, aggressive and willing to move up, the Vikings are going to be in the mix, aggressive and willing to move up. We don't know about the Giants in their situation. I just think they're like Arizona could come out like bandits in this thing, depending on where they want to go. And there are going to be good players there for them to take as well. But you want to talk about a draft to be in a position to trade. Arizona essentially has it's like they have a number 1 overall pick, right? Because everybody's going to want that spot if it is, in fact, these teams that want to move up and take whoever it is that they want to take. I'm seeing a lot of people really evaluate, and there's like some late momentum to Penix here, as all the early momentum was with J.J. McCarthy. So who knows? But, in this quarterback-rich class that we've heard about for years and years, there are enough teams, I think, desperate enough to really do something special. Imagine if you're Arizona and Surtain's dangled out there, you could move down. I don't know. I'll have to pull up the first round draft order, but come on now, Denver. Where does Denver even sit? Denver sits at 12. So probably if you do that, the risk for Arizona is that you don't get one of the 3 top receivers. I don't think at 12. But man, if you're getting Surtain, if you're getting first round picks, all this kind of stuff, it's going to be tough for them to turn it down. And the Chargers, if Arizona does want to take one of those, they're another team that could be, they don't get the first shot at this thing, right? Because everybody's going to have to want to move up to 4. But if they sit there at 5, you want to talk about draft day drama. If Arizona takes receiver and doesn't, or takes whatever and doesn't trade down, how much time do they have on the clock in the first round? 15 minutes, 20 minutes? You'll have a stretch there of 15 or 20 minutes where maybe up to 3 teams are offering you things to move into your spot. It's like that movie, right? Like it's going to come down to the wire if that is the scenario and the Chargers are sitting there like that.
I never thought that the Arizona Cardinals would be in a position of strength in the draft. And they're not a good team. They didn't win many games last year, but they have their quarterback, at least for the foreseeable future. I'm not sure that anybody would say that Kyler Murray is a superstar by any means right now, but
not anymore.
They've got him locked up and they're committed to him. So they're not a threat to take a quarterback. The team overall is not good, but that's not a need for them in this particular draft. And it's a quarterback heavy draft, and they've got the number 3 overall pick. So I do think that it would be absolutely advantageous for Arizona to at least field calls and consider moving down out of 3 because of what you can get in return. Now, I know that Marvin Harrison Jr. is out there and that he would be the best non-quarterback pick that you could make. And he's absolutely worthy of a extremely high draft pick in the first round. But if the teams that are, wanting to move into that spot are needy at quarterback, and they're gonna be, if they're gonna be the ones that trade it at, up to number 3 with Arizona, then at that point, yeah, like I'd consider, if I'm Arizona, saying, man, we love Marvin Harrison Jr. He's an incredible wide receiver, but look at everything that we can get in return. It's going to be a bidding war for our number 3 overall pick. We can load up in this year's draft. We can load up in next year's draft. There's, other things that we could do. Maybe we can get players, as part of a, trade that will make us better right away next season, that are established in the league. So I think that all of that is on the table, and it's absolutely something that Arizona should consider.
It is. And that's where Denver gets really interesting to me, because in theory, you would see Denver and it's like, nah, they don't pick until 12. If I trade with, Minnesota, who is at, where are they normally at 11? I still probably don't get a receiver, but boy, if the Bears want to get in the mix, right? And you could still get one of the receivers. It'll be an interesting decision. The thing about Denver that makes it so interesting is if they're willing to trade Surtain, I mean, you'd take him at number 4. Right? Like, so that gets pretty interesting. If it was that and 12 and whatever else, you'd be hard pressed not to take that deal, man. Like, it's so if Denver really gets in the mix here, and they should, and Sean Payton would love to be able to just move on with his life from Russell Wilson in a complete, well, who do they have? Stidham is going to be their guy, I think, right now. Yeah. So they really need a quarterback. Now, Denver could also, it sort of, like we talked about a couple of days ago, it sort of depends on who Denver likes too, right? Because if they like, Bo Nix, then they can just chill. If they like Michael Penix Jr., it gets a little dicier because, you would still have the Raiders. Not that the Raiders pick ahead of them, but the Raiders would be in a position to potentially move up. You don't know who the Vikings like. If the Vikings like them, they could potentially move up and make sure you don't do that. So it sort of depends on who they like. If they like McCarthy, that again becomes the most fascinating thing, is how those 4 teams, Raiders, Broncos, Vikings, Giants, look at these quarterbacks, assuming Drake May goes 3. But let's say we know the top 2, and then it's, some combination of Drake May, JJ McCarthy, Michael Penix Jr., and maybe Bo Nix, but probably not. Maybe it's those other 3. What do these teams think of those guys? How do you get an appropriate gauge of what your competition thinks of those guys? Because that's a part of the equation, right? How aggressive do I need to be for the guy that I like? Let's say it's Penix and not JJ McCarthy. Okay. Well, we think the Vikings like McCarthy? Because then that we're safe there if that's the case. Like, who likes Penix? How do you even gauge that? How do you get in on that? Because I would imagine that the agents are all going to say, they love us. They love us. They're going to take us there. You should move up, because that'll, they'll slot higher and get more money that way. Or maybe they have an end game where they want to end up in a certain place. That's another component to this too, right? By the way, Cortland Sutton might be on the trade block too. So like if you're Arizona and they're talking about Cortland Sutton and, Surtain and this package of players they're trying to sort of offload, man, I don't know if I want to go to Denver if I'm a rookie quarterback. So if I'm on that, that player's team or in that player's camp, I'm like, how can we maneuver to make sure, like if imagine you're, let's say JJ McCarthy's agent. I feel like you're telling the Vikings and everybody else everything you can to make sure your quarterback, your player gets to Minnesota. And if you're JJ McCarthy and these are the teams all in the mix, aren't you doing everything like, man, I want to end up in Minnesota, right? Because they all want to end up in Minnesota and play with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson and be, coached by a quarterback guy. Like that's another component of this. Do you really want to be the team that ends up in Vegas right now with what they're running out there? No, like you want to end up in Minnesota if you're any of these quarterbacks. So there's just so many small wrinkles to this, and it's got to be a little bit of cat and mouse. And if you don't think these players are worried about that stuff, look at what Deion Sanders has been in the news for this week, saying he's only going to let his guys go to certain teams. Look at Eli Manning's situation with the Chargers all the way back. Like, of course that stuff happens. That's human nature. If you're one of these quarterbacks, yeah, you're going to have an opinion on where you go. There will be places you'd rather go than others. There has to be. So it's all like coming into this melting pot where I feel like we could just see wild stuff happen on draft night.
It's interesting because I know that in this group of quarterbacks, not all of them are going to hit. I mean, we know that every single year when there's a
probably not,
when
right.
There's a large quarterback draft class, more often than not, you don't see everybody come out on top. That's typically not the way that it goes. Now, there are draft classes that are exceptions to that. Like I think back to, 1983, when you had the draft with Elway and Marino and all the other guys that, there was a 30 for 30
Elway,
about.
Jim Kelly,
Yeah.
Dan Marino, Ken O'Brien.
Exactly. So like that was the exception to the rule. There have been a couple of other classes where it's been, incredibly strong, but not everybody hits. I mean, go back to 83. I believe that was the year, wasn't it, that Todd Blackledge was drafted by the Chiefs? And yeah, he lasted a few years with Kansas City and,
Right.
that was the last time the Chiefs took a quarterback in the first round until Patrick Mahomes. So not everybody, even in that class that was highly regarded and highly touted, hit. So that's the way it's going to be this year. Not every single quarterback is going to hit. That being said, though, it does make me chuckle a little bit the way that it seems like these teams are jockeying for position, because I understand that there is an immense amount of pressure for whoever the quarterback that these teams select hits. I mean, think about the Chicago Bears. We haven't talked about them really ever since they traded Justin Fields away and moved away from him, because we know they're taking Caleb Williams. And by all accounts, everybody says Caleb Williams is a sure thing. But think about if he's not, and it doesn't hit for Chicago and the kind of pressure that they'll be under. Same thing with any of these other teams, that are looking at taking Jaden Daniels or JJ McCarthy, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, any of these guys, because I think that the likelihood that whoever these teams take, that the quarterback hits, is greater than if they miss. Now, it doesn't mean they're all going to hit, but I do think that the odds are, and we talked about this the other day, about how like evaluating and scouting out the talent. And if you love this guy, you move up and take that guy. And it doesn't matter what you give up to move up in the draft to get him. Okay, true. I understand that philosophy, but at the same time, I think the odds are in your favor that whoever you select is going to be a good quarterback for you. Will they all be Super Bowl winning quarterbacks? Probably not, but it's a really talented and deep draft class. So it does make me chuckle that now that, there's all this drama here, and we could see like massive movement in the draft, and like the Cardinals maybe getting a huge bounty in return for the number 3 pick. I think the odds are probably in the team's favor that whoever they pick, it's going to be good for them.
Yeah, I mean, the risk level is far lower for them because they're not taking quarterback, right? Like, and who knows? I mean, maybe they change their minds and they want to take a quarterback and shock the world. I mean, I don't know. I doubt it. But you just like the class of our generation was, and there are some classes in the last few years that are going to have a chance to show something. But I mean, 2004 was that year for our generation, right? Ben Roethlisberger, Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers. I think Matt Schaub was in that class, who had a nice NFL career. But otherwise, those 3 Hall of Famers, right? It's sort of like the 83 class. And so, yeah, you can still hit. And the other thing is, too, like we see this all the time. You don't have to be, the top end of the first round to be a great quarterback or to make up a great quarterback class. We've been hearing about this group for a long time. They're all kind of different too, right? Like that's the other thing that's really interesting about this class. Like there's Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels and Drake May and JJ McCarthy and Penix and Bo Nix. Like those are not similar quarterbacks. So style could come into play. But the reality is you just have to hit on the pick, right? You have to. And I think all of those teams we're mentioning here are at the right place in their franchise's trajectory where they sort of need to take this risk, right? They sort of, you kind of are at that spot where you'd need to. What will be interesting is, the long-term evaluation. Like if let's say you're, I don't know, Denver or the Raiders. Those might be good examples here. Because I think the Vikings are in a need to be a little more aggressive, but not necessarily the Raiders or the Broncos, right? I don't think there's much pressure on either of those places at the moment. Do you really? And we say that, and let's say you love Shedeur Sanders. You think he's going to be great because you're already watching that stuff, right? I mean, do you really need to reach on a quarterback you're sort of lukewarm on? Maybe this guy will be good, or do we save up that ammo and go all in on Shedeur Sanders? Of course, the risk there is if the team picking at the top needs a quarterback, you'll never pry that pick away from them if they also like that player. It's such a cat and mouse game. It's why we're so fascinated with the NFL draft. Most of the time, we're the most fascinated with it because of the quarterback position, right? That's generally where all the drama comes in. Whatever year it is, most of the drama comes at quarterback. This year, there's a top guy, and there's a clear number 2 guy, and then there's 3 others in this mix that everybody kind of likes, and there's varying degrees of how much people like them. If I had to ask you right now, Tommy, you can just take any of them. JJ McCarthy, Michael Penix Jr., or Bo Nix.
I'm probably taking, man, it's really close. I'm going to probably take Michael Penix.
I think I am too.
I really like JJ McCarthy, but I'm going to take Michael Penix. And the reason for that is because I thought that I think he has tremendous upside. I think he's got a higher ceiling.
I agree.
And I think that he was overlooked throughout the course of the season. And, all he did was lead Washington, to a national championship appearance. And I don't think that he got quite the accolades that, everybody was. I remember everybody talking about Bo Nix throughout the course of the season. And Michael Penix Jr. beat Bo Nix, So I think that I would probably take Penix over the other two. For me, I mean, I love Jaden Daniels. I think whatever team ends up with Jaden Daniels is going to end up, with a rock star of a quarterback. But after that, yeah, I'm probably going to take Michael Penix.
I think I am too. Because you can't just say, because what's hard is, like, let's say you're the Vikings, planting a guy with the experience of JJ McCarthy is appetizing. But if you don't think JJ McCarthy is the best player with the highest upside, I mean, you have to take the highest upside. You have to. Because if you're going to win a Super Bowl, they're going to have to be great, or the odds will be so heavily stacked against them. They couldn't win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins. So you have to think this player's better than Kirk Cousins. Although, remember, they wanted to bring him back, and they should have. Whatever. That's what makes it interesting, too. Different teams have different needs at the time, but at the end of the day, you just have to take the quarterback you think is going to be the best quarterback. JJ McCarthy might be the better short-term quarterback, but if you think Penix or Nix or whatever is the better, overall prospect, you have to take that guy. You have to, because you have to end up with the best player at that position. I don't know. I see a lot of drama. When you see Denver wants to get into the mix, Tommy, and what they may be willing to trade up, are you still good with our bet of, 4 quarterbacks in the first 5 picks?
Not now, because I do think that it's going to be absolutely appealing for the Cardinals to consider moving out of that number 3
Cardinals or
overall
the
pick.
Chargers, right?
Yeah.
Like you just need one of those 2 teams.
Yeah,
to move
I think
out.
that more than likely, if the Broncos are that desperate, and that makes me laugh too, that they're in this position, desperate to draft a rookie quarterback and completely start over, and we knew that something like this was probably going to happen in some capacity. I thought they would be more active in free agency, to get somebody to go in there and compete with Jared Stidham. But drafting a rookie,
Jared Judy's gone.
Yeah.
They're talking about trading Cortland Sutton.
Right. It's a whole rebuild. And that's,
let's
Sean
say you're
Payton
the
wants to build
Chargers.
his team.
Let's say you're the Chargers. Let's say the Cardinals don't want to trade. You're the Chargers. I know it's in division, and I know you would hate to see that quarterback be that successful against you. You want to talk about two spots of need for the Chargers, whether it's Surtain, whether it's Sutton, that draft pick. I'd be pretty appetizing if I'm the Chargers.
And remember, the Chargers, they don't have Keenan Allen anymore. They're a little lacking at wide receiver, and
they're
secondary.
A lot lacking at wide
they're a lot
receiver.
lacking at wide receiver, and their secondary was not good last year. Their whole defense wasn't good last year. So Patrick Surtain could come in and absolutely switch that around.
You win that bet if Arizona and Chargers are enamored with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors. That's how you win that bet.
Yep.
But, man, I just don't know if they don't catch an offer they can't refuse. I cannot wait 1 week away. This is as sexy and good an NFL draft day one as we've had in recent years. It's going to be fantastic, I think. And there's always the trades that we never see coming, like A.J. Brown, that are on the table, too. 869-1240, the IHOP hotline is open for you. If you'd like to chime in, of course, the Chiefs, one of those teams trying to come up with a decision to make as to what they'll do in the NFL draft, if you'd like to talk about that. Little Royals doubleheader baseball yesterday. Let's touch on that when we return on Sports Daily. On your way into work and want to keep listening to Sports Daily even after you park the car? With the Odyssey app and Odyssey.com, you can. Just download the app or visit Odyssey.com and search KFH. Download the Odyssey app today to get started. It's an off day. Normally, you'd hear Royals baseball right here on KFH or the Odyssey app. Not today because they played a doubleheader yesterday. They're done with the White Sox. Tommy, they split yesterday. A little frustrating. They still win the series. Tough to go up against the White Sox and not be able to scratch enough runs together to cover two. But they fall in the second game 2-1. They do get enough runs together in the first game 4-2. Two more really nice starting pitching performances from Brady Singer and Michael Wacha. Salvador Perez hit the go-ahead home run in the first game. Things continue to chug along the right track here. More times through the rotation, more good starting pitching. Of course, we know it all starts there, I think, with anything a team's going to do most of the time in Major League Baseball. And it's just strange. We haven't seen starting pitching like this for Kansas City all the way through, like ever. Like even in the really great years. I mean, this has been really, really impressive. And, as the weather warms up, that'll get a little trickier. But, I mean, I have confidence in all of these guys. How many teams in baseball can say that?
Well, not very many, because most rotations have a couple of guys that you lean on, a couple of guys that you cross your fingers about that may be good sometimes and not so good other times. And then you've always got a weak link, and I'm not sure the Royals really do. I think you've got obviously a drop off in talent and production when you get towards the end of the rotation. I think Alec Marsh is, that guy, but it's not bad necessarily, from any one of them. And I know they split the doubleheader, but keep in mind, that's the first time they've lost to the White Sox this year. They're 6-1 in the 7 games they've played against the White Sox so far this season. They've played that team a lot. They don't face the White Sox again until a 3-game homestand in late July. So it's a while before you see them again, and then they take them on again in Chicago about a week later. So it's a really good way to start off that series with the White Sox throughout the course of the season. And we've talked about it before. That is definitely what you want to see. You want to see them beat up on the teams that are not good in Major League Baseball. I get it. They split the doubleheader. It's the final game in that series, and the last time that they'll face that team for quite a while. And they split the doubleheader. It is what it is. So overall, though, feel good about it. Feel good about them as a whole. The bats didn't really come alive in game number 2 in the doubleheader. That kind of doomed them. But yeah, as you mentioned, it was another pretty solid pitching performance yesterday in both games of the doubleheader.
In bullpen, right? Yep. Remember when the bullpen, we were just like horrified about the bullpen and everything's been good. MacArthur got a save yesterday. He's been good. But in any individual game here, Tommy, like when we're just looking at, runs allowed, even outside of the bullpen, like it's gotten so much better in their last 4 games. And again, a lot of these have come against the White Sox. But you had one against the Mets, the Marsh game, where they gave up as a team 7 runs. But as a team on this road trip, runs allowed, 6 too many, but then 2, 2, 2, 2. They're getting consistency at least.
Their last 4 games, they've given up 6 runs in the last 4 games. Yeah. They shut out the White Sox on Monday. So yeah, I mean they've, as far as runs allowed and pitching altogether, it's coming together for them.
You get a series against Baltimore at home. You like the way your pitching lines up, right? You get Reagans and Lugo both going in that series. Reagans, by the way, Burns. Saturday night, you kidding me? That's as good as it gets. Those are 2 of the best right now in the American League. By the Cole Reagans didn't even win this year, which is crazy. But this is what it's all about. And you get home games against Baltimore. Second time they've seen Baltimore. Last time the Orioles took 2 or 3 in some close games. A chance maybe to bounce back and take 2 or 3 away from them. It's really refreshing. It's nice. It's fun. We were in the office yesterday, in the TV office, we're looking at Royals highlights in the 6 o'clock, and I'm like, man, It has been a long time since Royals highlights have been relevant in our sportscast in, mid-April.
Right.
Like it's been a few years where it's like, no, we can go ahead and take that off the list, but not now. Like we're locked in. I love it, man. I love it. It's so dang fun It bugs me. I love that it bugs me this much that they didn't win the second game of that doubleheader against the lowly White Sox yesterday. That's the beauty of baseball. That's when you know you've got it good in baseball, is when your team loses, or like in this instance, a team we follow so closely in the Royals loses, and it just irritates you so much.
Yeah.
You just like and when it comes before an off day, it's even worse. Now you got 2 days of this, right? The beauty of baseball is you can always bounce back the next day, but yeah, it's good to have that feeling again.
I think the only thing that's concerning for me right now is, we talked about the number of runs they allowed in the last 4 games, dating back to Sunday in that final game against the Mets. It's concerning, I think, a little bit, the lack of scoring on their end offensively. In those same 4 games, they scored 8 runs. So, yeah, your run differential is good. I mean, it's 8-6 in the last 4 games, but you're not really lighting the world on fire offensively if you're Kansas City. You have to go back to the game on Saturday. They put up 11. That's great. They were able to put up 13 against the Astros last Thursday, but sandwiched in between that on Friday, 1 run against the Mets, 1 run on that Sunday game, the finale against the Mets, 2, 4, and 1 in the series against the White Sox. So I think that's something that, especially if you're going to get that quality starting pitching moving forward, and it looks like we can be counting on that, you've got to have the run support to back it up. And yeah, the bullpen has been improved, but you've got to make sure that you've got some insurance in there from an offensive point of view, because while they've been improved, I'm not sure that we're ready yet to say that we fully believe in the bullpen yet.
Oh,
so you'd like
all.
to have
No,
those
no.
insurance runs. That's really where that offense is going to need to, come out in a better way, moving forward, especially this weekend against the Orioles.
I don't believe in all the arms there by any means. I do think, though, that Contreras getting a better feel for his bullpen, which is good, right? He's feeling it out and navigating it. It's funny. I believe it was Whitey Herzog, the voice of the Rangers, I've told you, is one of my idols in this business. He's so good. And he recalled, as Whitey Herzog died this week, like something that Whitey Herzog told him when he was like literally just started. And he was like, give me one piece of advice for baseball, that'll stick with me forever. And he just said, never forget. Let me see if I can pull the direct quote, because it's really, really good. And it has to do with bullpens and their impact on, reputation and everything else. But he said, okay, here's the quote. In 1979, nothing makes a manager look dumber than a bad bullpen. And it's true, right? If there's no way you can push any of the right buttons, like if you can never get it right, it makes you look stupid. Sometimes you just don't have a good bullpen, right? Sometimes it doesn't matter. And that's what we didn't know about this team. But if Quatraro can at least, push the right buttons with we'll call it mediocre at best at this point, talent-wise bullpen, that may be enough when you're getting that kind of starting pitching. But yes, the offense has to be there. I think offensively, Tommy, the big thing that's killing them right now is Michael Garcia, after a hot, couple of games to open the season, has been really bad, lately. He's striking out way too much. He's only hitting 164. The little power surge that he saw early in the year has waned. I don't know what they can do. I don't know if it's as simple as, putting Bobby Witt Jr. at the top of the lineup. I don't know, but it ain't Michael Garcia right now. They need him to pick it up as a table setter. But that's been one of the biggest differences in this offense early in the year now, is he's just not doing anything.
Yeah, he's not. And that's disappointing, considering we've seen flashes of that. We've seen flashes of it, and so I'm not ready yet to throw in the towel, because I think he's got a high ceiling. I think he's got a lot of talent.
Might be ready to throw into the towel of him as the leadoff hitter at this very moment, though.
Yeah, I get that. I get that point of view. I just wonder if you move away from him at the top of the order. I know he's not getting on base in a way that we, would like him to, but you're sacrificing that speed, I think, a little bit by not having him at the top of the lineup if he can get on base. If he can't get on base, then yeah, you need to probably, make a change with that. I don't think I'm ready yet to go that far, because I've seen it before too, where you've got players that are moved out of one place in the lineup and it just absolutely screws them up, and it kind of screws up the rest of the lineup too. It's not like changing the order of pitchers coming out of the bullpen. Like, you can kind of play around with that a little bit to get it right, and it's not the end of the world either way. You start changing a lineup, even if a guy is in a slump. I'm not so sure that I don't think that's the lever that Matt Quatraro wants to pull right now. Now, if this drags on for longer, if we're talking about this in another couple of weeks, then yeah, okay, maybe at that point I'd be more on board. But right now, I almost think you just kind of need to let him work through it and see if there's a way that he can get that turned around.
Yeah, maybe, but I think it can be simple. Like Nick Lofton right now, or Adam Frazier, both of those guys, are at least getting on base and walking a bunch. Maybe just a temporary spot for them. Slide Garcia down a little bit. Let him be more patient. He's just not giving you much of anything to set the table, because you have to be able to set the table for Witt, Salvi, and Pasquantino, because that's where the offense is going to come this year. I mean, most of their offense will come right there in that spot. You have to be able to set the table with them. And honestly, like if you slid Garcia to 9 temporarily, it only matters the first time through the lineup, because then he's still a table setter for Bobby Witt Jr. You know what I mean? So lots of teams move around that leadoff hitter quite a bit. And I don't necessarily think you need to put Bobby Witt Jr. as your leadoff hitter, although I'd kind of like to see Bobby Witt Jr. as the leadoff hitter a little bit. Maybe you need one other hitter, because then who comes into the 2 spot, right? Maybe Melendez, if he keeps developing, could do that. But Bobby Witt Jr. as your leadoff man sounds pretty dang good.
To that point, I will say, when you bring up Bobby Witt Jr. in the leadoff spot, of course, I always reference my Braves because I, follow them religiously. I was not a fan a couple of years ago when they decided that they were going to put Ronald Acuna in the leadoff spot. I'm like, oh, that power bat. You need some protection around him in the lineup. Put him in the cleanup spot or number 3 or whatever. But he's such a dynamic player, and he's got speed, he's got power, he's got all of that. He's a multi-tool player, and they put him at the very top of the lineup. So basically, to start off the game, the starting pitcher can't really get into a groove early on. Like, you can't settle into it, right? Where a lot of times historically you've got more of a light hitting batter who's got a lot of speed at the top of the order. They're going to get on base maybe, but they're not really going to be a massive home run threat. Typically, that's kind of the way that Bobby Witt Jr. could be. So again, I'm not worried. I'm not ready yet to say that Maikel Garcia needs to be moved out of that top spot in the lineup. But if you get to a point to where this drags on, then I would not be opposed to a situation where you're leading off with Bobby Witt Jr.
You can look. The other part of it too is, as long as you've got speed there, especially now with the revitalization of a stolen base, as long as you've got speed there, I don't think it really matters, right? I mean, Mike Trout, I think, hits second this year. He's been first or second. He's the most comparable player, I think, to me, to Bobby Witt Jr. offensively. But there are Gunnar Henderson leads off, I know, for the Orioles. Marcus Semien leads off for there are really good hitters that bring value in other places that I almost think it's changed in baseball. I think the idea of Bobby Witt Jr. as your leadoff hitter analytically makes a ton of sense, because how many extra at bats in a season maybe does being a leadoff hitter get you?
Yeah.
Versus number 2, maybe a handful, but it's a handful. It's
probably more than that, because even if your team is not offensively outstanding, that leadoff guy or the top of the lineup, you're going to get maybe one more at bat than the rest of the lineup. So you're probably looking at, it's probably more than a handful of more at bats that you're going to get.
It's a simple math equation, right? Your chances of getting the most at bats in an individual game certainly are at the top of the lineup. So it would make sense to play your best player there at the top of the lineup. So we'll see. I'm not saying pull the plug on Maikel Garcia. By God, no. But at the top of the lineup, I might be ready for that. I might be ready to try it out and see what happens. I don't know what the problem for the Royals is. I don't think there's a clear spot at number 2, right? If you're going to put Bobby Witt Jr. at the top of the lineup, what do you do at 2? Because you got Salvi and Pasquantino there. I don't think you'd want to move either of those guys up to that spot. Melendez makes the most sense to me if he's hitting well. But shake it up a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. You didn't score very many runs against the White Sox, and they're not a very good pitching staff. So shake it up, just like you did with the bullpen. I mean, if you're coming from the Rays, Tommy, how many times do you think the Rays run the same lineup out there? Because I would bet not a lot. Don't know that for a fact, but I would imagine that over the years they have not been a consistent here's what our lineup is, pencil it in every day kind of organization. But we'll see. I mean, it's April 18th. I hope Michael Garcia, gets it back together because he could be a big part of what this team does. Royals with an off day today. And then they'll get back in action with a big old series against Baltimore coming up. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. More Sports Daily. Albracht and Castor on a Thursday. Don't go away. All right, welcome back in, everybody, to Sports Daily. This portion of the program brought to you by Crestview Country Club. Not the best day to get out and play golf today.
Yesterday was, though.
Yesterday was,
and I
though.
did, and it was
What?
perfect.
Did you play north or south?
I played the north course. It's greened up, which is nice over the last couple of weeks. Weather was great. It was warm. A light breeze. It wasn't bad. So I actually was able to kind of clear some things out in the mid to late afternoon. And I'm like, you know what? I'm busy. I've worked a lot. I'm going to go out and I'm going to play golf. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful day. Loved it.
Must be nice. Not me, slaving away.
You should have joined me. I didn't even ask you because I knew that
I'm at work. I
like
can't. I
nothing you
don't
can
have
do.
one of those. I don't have one of those kinds of jobs where it's like, hey, I'm at work today. I'm going to go play golf. No, when I'm at work, I got to go to work.
Neither do I. I had to like
be there. I
had
sit
to
in
move
a spot and be there.
I had to move a bunch of things around, and I was fortunate to be able to do so. I mean, it wasn't like I took the entire day off. We're talking like 3:00, kind of thing, being able to just like jet out a little bit early, to be able to go and take advantage of that. But man, it was worth it. It was a beautiful day.
I mean, I can't move around the 4:00 newscast, like I can't.
You couldn't do it like on location. They couldn't go to you live, like on the green as you're putting, like, hey, hold on. I got to like read this report about, this stabbing. So I'll putt and then I'll read about that.
No, that wouldn't work well. There's been some pretty terrible news lately.
Mm.
It would not work out well. I am envious of it. What I've got to figure out is how to master the window that I have from getting off of the radio here to going into television and then going to play, I think 9 holes. I think I could get 9.
How much time do you have between?
One of the things I like about Crestview is that I don't feel obligated to play 8. I can just go 9.
Yep.
How much time do I need to play 9 by myself?
Well, like how much time do you have in between gigs?
Well, right now I got to take my son to school, so not enough. Like, I don't know, an hour, 45 minutes. But when that changes, but then I might have to, like, when the summer comes, do I bring my kids on the cart? All 3 of them, deal with that? Is that going to delay me enough? I mean, there are a lot of things in there. And, like next school year is the first year we're going to have all our kids and going to the same place for the first time in our life, like in our lives with kids. So that's what I keep envisioning. It's like, well, just wait until, August or whenever it is. I'm getting out there and I'm going to play.
Hey, the good thing is that you could absolutely, if you wanted to, I don't know if you'd want to, but you could absolutely take your kids on the cart, take them out to the golf course. That's one thing.
I've taken the girls.
One thing I love about Crestview is that you can load them up on the cart and, just take them out there and, have a good time. And nobody cares. It's not a big deal and they can have some fun.
I've taken the 2 girls out, all 3 of them at the same time. I haven't gone through that adventure. We've gone out and hit balls based on how that goes. Taking them all out to the course to play, be a bit of an adventure. I'll give it a run. We appreciate Crestview for their support on the show. Give them a call. Check out a membership. They got all kinds of different memberships that you can take a look at, even if you're not a golfer. Just the pool and all the other stuff is fun. All right, coming up, Tim Fitzgerald's going to join us. We'll go through the latest in K-State recruiting. They've sort of been rumored in on some big names, like some really big names. We'll see what Fitz is hearing on the basketball front and check in and really just find out if there's anything we need to know about football right now in the recruiting world as well. We'll have Fitz when we return on Sports Daily.
97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
He's got all the insight of what you want to know and maybe some of what you don't want to know. Here's K-State insider Tim Fitzgerald.
All right, welcome in, everybody. Hour number 2 of Sports Daily. Glad to be here with you on this Thursday. That means we get our weekly visit with Tim Fitzgerald. Go powercat.com, at Life of Fitz on social media. Fitz, it has been, I think, active but quiet in the sense of pulling the trigger on some transfer portal stuff. So sort it out for us. I had heard that K-State was in on the big man from Arizona that went to Indiana. I think there are all kinds of mixed reviews on whether K-State is in on the Duke transfer, Mark Mitchell, who has ties to the area, played right here in Bel Air and is from the Kansas City, Kansas area. Where are we at in all of this recruiting with Jerome Tang and his staff right now?
Well, the big guy from Arizona, apparently his NIL ask was $1.2 million.
Holy cow.
For a season. K-State was never going to pay that. I mean, that's just absurd. Right. But apparently Indiana did, or they got close enough. That's
I thought, and I thought maybe I saw that was to get him out of Indiana, right? To make him not go to Indiana. So maybe it wasn't quite that high for the Hoosiers, but who knows?
Yeah, and look, I think Hunter Dickinson was $1 million, and he was worth it. He, as a player, was worth it. There's no doubt. He was dominant, but it's limited resources. So I think we found the ramifications of that, where Kansas didn't have quite the depth that they might have had. So coaches are literally working with salary caps now. Their NIL budget is set. They know how much they have to divvy up for their 13 scholarships, and they've got to make hard decisions on who to add and how to fill out their roster that makes it work. And it's crazy we're in this situation now, but that's the reality of it. I'd keep an eye on Baba Miller from Florida State. There's a lot of activity around him. He's a European kid, so he's a little bit motivated differently. He's got different handlers. It's just a kind of a different process with the overseas kids because you're working with the European contacts for the most part. And there's some other good players. Rutgers big man. I can't even say his name.
Yeah, I can't think of his name.
Off the top
I know
of my
what
head.
you're talking about.
Yeah, and I don't think the kid that played at Sunrise is going to end up at K-State for whatever reason. I don't know what's going on with that, but there was a link that had him committed to K-State that was completely false. It was something going through the coaching profession and got to a reporter, and they put it up, and then instantly it was used against K-State in the recruiting process, and he committed to Texas Tech. It's kind of miraculous. What a coincidence that is. So Texas Tech ended up getting a player that K-State thought they were getting based on that rumor. So it's been the transfer portal's just fascinating to watch it, how it unfolds and how it actually works, and you calculate in NIL and the budgets, and it's amazing to watch coaches have to go through this at the college level. This is not what they signed up for, but here we are.
Well, one of the big stories from earlier this week, CJ Jones committing to Jerome Tang's program, coming from UIC. He had a great season for the Flames. He averaged 13.7 points a game, 4.8 assists and 3.5 rebounds, a good shooter from three. And there were some other power conference teams that were really interested in him. Teams like Xavier and Illinois and Creighton rumored to be in on CJ Jones. What was it that ultimately was able to get this kid to join Jerome Tang and the Wildcats for next season?
I think the fact that he's high school teammates with McCaleb Rich was a big part. And it might have been a big part in McCaleb staying, because there was talk about him getting into the transfer portal at season's end. And so I think this was something that stabilized both that. I compared him to Cam Carter. He's, a tall, lengthy guard, shot better from three than Cam. Still maybe not good enough or as high as you'd want, around 37%, but better. Cam was around 30. Turns it over less, has more assists, is kind of a better rounded player than where Cam was. And I loved Cam, but his game didn't seem to advance that much. And so they've got now a big athletic guard to put into the mix with some of their smaller guys. I mean, both RJ Jones, not DJ Jones, not that that's going to be confusing, and Dede Ames are on the smaller side, as is David Castillo, the point guard coming in this freshman class. So they needed some more size on the wing, and they've accomplished that. I think unless there's, another scholarship that opens, we still got Quez Glover, Arthur Kaluma, and David Gasson, who haven't indicated that they're coming back. We believe they all are, but they still haven't said yes as they explore other options. So with their 3 remaining transfer portal openings, basically, that's who they're recruiting, it's going to be all big men, whether they're post or power forward. They've got to beef that up literally because they're pretty thin across the front line and pretty talented in the backcourt.
I feel like there is a big splash coming for K-State hoops in the NIL. I had heard that a part of, because I don't believe that we have seen yet what Jerome Tang was given to not go to Arkansas. And I can't remember if you've been on this or not, Tim, but I've heard that there was a big NIL component to that return to K-State, essentially, that should put the Wildcats in a really nice position. And what better to explode the momentum of the program of keeping Tang in this late but furious coaching carousel than to follow it up with a big NIL splash, much like they made with Keontae Johnson. I think one's coming. I don't know what it is, but I feel like one's gonna happen.
Yeah, and they're just not looking for the biggest player, best player, most the most splash. They're looking for the right fit. They don't want to bring in someone that is going to be not fit into their program and their ways. So they're being careful with that. I honestly don't know how much of the Arkansas thing was tied to NIL. They had beefed up his NIL quite a bit, and it was in pretty healthy standard, maybe top 25 NIL in the country. So if they added more, it should be very effective. But I'm really fascinated to see what the next big piece is, because they got to get a dominant post. I mean, Jerrell Colbert left because he knew they were going after a couple post players that might be better than him. So now they better do it, because they lost a pretty decent player in Colbert to the transfer portal. And they better go find some nice players to replace what they're losing on the front line. But they also feel like they can greatly upgrade that position and be better for it.
I think it's fascinating to hear you talk about how the Wildcats and really any program has to balance kind of the budget with the NIL and, the needs that are there, who's available and all of that. Because, you talk about the need and really the greatest need being a dominant post player. You also mentioned the Sunrise kid, Mark Mitchell, transferring out of Duke. And, he's ranked as one of the top available transfers out there right now. He's not a post player, but he picked up a crystal ball from Jason Shear to come to Kansas State. It's kind of looks like maybe between K-State and Missouri right now, or maybe the two that are most after him. So as you are, as Jerome Tang is trying to figure out exactly how all the pieces fit, do you think that how much priority do you place on where the greatest need is versus who the best available player could potentially be that would come to your program?
It's a great question. I mean, do you just go really small?
Yeah.
And by that, I mean, not having a traditional power forward, which they've done. I mean, David Gasson is awful skinny for that task. He's, built more like a wing player. He's done a great job in the post when he had to. I'm still not sold on how much connection at this point there is with Mitchell. Yeah. I think that he's, I think that was a rumor that made it to a crystal ball. So we'll see how this actually plays out. But you said it. Right now their focus is on big men. And I can see them maybe going that direction if they lose one of their current players that they thought were coming back. I mean, if Kaluma goes, that makes all the sense in the world. So there's just so many moving pieces for coaches right now. And I don't know where it's all going to settle in at, but this is insanity what's going on in college sports right now. And they've got to figure out how to settle it down.
Yeah, Mark Mitchell's I think is the kind of player that you just get if you can get him, and you'll sort itself out. What about football, Fitz? Did we something's happening in the portal right now in football, right? Did some sort of window open? Educate us, if you would, on what is important right now. Like I don't have the energy to keep up with the dates and the timelines and all that stuff, but it feels like this is a big time for football teams. Yes, what's happening?
Yeah, it opened up on Tuesday, April 16th, and there was a lot of forecasts for chaos. Maybe we haven't seen that. Also, keep in mind, schools actually have 48 hours to put someone into the transfer portal. So by the end of business today, everyone should be in that, went in on Tuesday. And I think some programs are probably delayed. And maybe it hasn't been as severe as we thought it might be across all of college football. I think K-State's done a good job of locking down their roster. They had a couple backups, get into the portal, but that's pretty common nowadays. If you ask fans at like TCU and Colorado, this has been a disaster. I mean, Colorado's is getting wiped out, and which I honestly find a little humorous after after taking 50-some transfer portal players last year, and the AD congratulated Deion Sanders of being brilliant. Now the same AD is complaining about the transfer portal because players are leaving. That's the world in which we live now. Colorado all of a sudden got a lot of work to do to fill out their roster to be competitive in the Big 12, as does TCU. TCU just lost a young all Big 12 defensive tackle. Within hours of being announced in the portal, he's got visits to USC, Texas, and Oklahoma. So clearly someone had gotten in his ear and said, you need to leave, you're worth more than they're paying you. And, he's now picking from some programs that have pretty big football NILs. The football side is where schools, honestly, in the Big 12 are going to have problems keeping up with the big budgets in the SEC and Big 10. And that's where the greatest separation might start to occur in college football, is based on the NIL.
I thought it was really interesting to read Chris Kleiman's interview with the Kansas City Star a couple of days ago, basically guaranteeing that there were going to be lots of changes, and those were his words, lots of changes to Kansas State football. And, kind of went a little bit in depth talking about some of the scheming and, on both sides of the ball and some of the changes that they're looking at making. Do you have any kind of indication on what that might look like? Are we going to see a team take the field this fall that maybe doesn't look quite like what we're used to seeing from Kansas State?
I think they'll be a little bit more nuanced. I think as a coach, they seem dramatic. I don't know that as a fan, you're going to notice a lot. Sure. Maybe the most obvious things will be on defense, where their incredible depth at defensive end. They've lost some really good edge players here in the last few years, but their recruiting class last year, all three DNs they added in that class are capable of starting this year as redshirt freshmen or true sophomores. And that's impressive. That's hard to do. And we saw Javon Banks hit the transfer portal because he wanted to move out to defensive end and quickly found out he wasn't going to see the field. So I think we're going to see some four-man front just a little bit, but we're going to see some four lineman fronts where I think they'll use a third defensive end as a stand-up rush end. I think that's mostly where the changes are on defense. Offensively, they're going to cater to Avery Johnson's talent, which is smart. We might see a little bit more option zone read, maybe even some true pitch option. I don't know. But I think that's going to be more in the route trees for the receivers and how they attack the edges of the field and get the ball to the edge. I think we're just going to see some more things maybe we've seen around college football, but not necessarily at Kansas State, that Matt Wells is going to bring to the table. I think the biggest changes might be in the passing game and how they construct their routes and what's available to the quarterback to see, which means new learning for everyone. But I think we can all agree something wasn't working in the passing game, whether it was the players or the system, something wasn't working. And now they've brought in more receivers. They've got Avery Johnson, and maybe an adjustment to the passing system will, reap some benefits.
Have you had any opportunity to get a feel for, the post Colin Klein era here and how players are taking to that, how they're liking that. How is it going so far with him now gone to Texas A&M?
Yeah. Matt Wells is a different coach, a little more intense, probably uses a little more colorful language. But they're both really knowledgeable quarterback coaches. And Avery said when we talked to him the other day, just having another voice, another, set of eyes and life experiences has helped him as a quarterback because he's learning a lot from Matt Wells, who's, a veteran quarterback coach and former head coach at Utah State and Texas Tech. So I think that's been really good for Avery. For all that Colin helped Avery and got him to K-State, I think the more coaching and different philosophies he can get is really good for him. And Matt Wells has discussed, he's worked a lot on his footwork and how to do things. And Avery has become absolutely amazing at replicating release points and throwing the ball. And we've noticed that in a little bit of practice we've seen. He can throw 3 passes to different receivers, the same route in a row, and every pass looks identical. It's kind of amazing how similar every throw looks and comes out of his hand at the right angle.
So I think we would be remiss to not mention, of course, the NFL draft is a week from today. And there was a lot of talk at the NFL Combine about how well Cooper Beebe graded out, basically all around and everything that he did. Now that we're, getting close and the countdown is on for the NFL draft, what's your projection? I mean, do we think that Cooper Beebe has found his way into maybe the second round? Is he more of a second day kind of guy? What do you think? Where do you think he'll fall when all of this is said and done?
Like I always say with the draft, it's like romance. It only takes one to think you're beautiful. And thank God I found that one because I was going to be probably a free agent. And I think Cooper Beebe will be a second round pick. He's you criticize him for physically not having long enough arms, which has been one of the knocks. But I can all but guarantee, setting aside injury possibilities, whoever drafts Cooper Beebe is going to have a 7-8 year starter on the interior of their line, if not into the double digits. He is just great at his craft and takes his work very seriously. And I know he's probably interviewing exceptionally well with NFL franchises, and I think he'll safely be in the second round. And now Ben Sinnott is climbing like crazy too, and he might be a third round guy. A lot of people have him as the second best tight end on the draft, and if so, that might mean he's a second round guy. I certainly think the Chiefs need to take a look at Ben Sinnott because Travis Kelce, I think is getting near retirement. I think romance is now the most important thing to him, although he can multitask as the Super Bowl shows. But I think planning ahead at tight end might be something that the Chiefs need to do.
He's got a lot cooking. I think he loves football too much. We'll see how that all works out. He's got a new game show coming up. His brother's losing Super Bowl rings and vats of chili. They're chugging beers at fake graduations, just riling up the world right now.
They're just the best. Those two brothers are they're very entertaining. I always laugh when people get offended. If he wants to live his life as a party boy, frat kid well into his 30s, go live that life. Don't, go do that if you can afford to do it. I think his girlfriend can pay for a round of drinks too, so he'll be okay.
I have 4 older brothers, and generally speaking, no matter what age we are, when we get together, shirts have come off, beers have been chugged, and we have made asses of ourselves in public. It's just what you do. I got all the respect in the world for it because I can relate to it, and I don't get to relate to pro athletes very often, but I can relate to that. Fitz, what do you guys have going at Go Power Cat for us?
Oh man, we dropped a podcast that's up on the site. You can watch it on YouTube or listen on whatever your podcast network of choice is. The Power Cat podcast. We've got a lot. Yeah, there you go. A lot of other things going on right now, and of course, we're tracking the portal and the ins and outs of that. We just unfortunately closed up a sale that ended last night, but you can still get a great deal at gopowercat.com and any 24/7 sports site. I know my buddy Michael Swain does a great job of the KU site if you're a KU fan. So get on over to 24/7 Sports. We got some really cool stuff cooking for the future of 24/7, and I think it'll all make sense what's going on with all the video we're doing in the near future.
Well, yeah, and you can. That was a shameless plug, but it's a real plug. You can catch all that work on the Odyssey app. So check it out. Fitz at Life of Fitz on social media. GoPowerCat.com. We appreciate it, and we'll just let you keep tracking all this portal stuff for us and keep us educated every week.
Thank you, boys. Great to talk to you.
There goes Tim Fitzgerald. If you want to react to any of that, you can. The IHOP hotline is back open now. You can leave your comments on our video streams, which you find on Facebook, YouTube, and X. All kinds of different ways that you can react there. A lot of good stuff. Go back and listen, by the way, to us on that Odyssey app if you missed that interview. We'll come back. More Sports Daily right after this. Let's start this segment off with a little giveaway. Give you some HTO. You can get a free iced tea, more than 25 flavors. You'll catch it at either Wichita location in East or West Wichita or in Derby. You can also get a free coffee, a free rain coffee now featuring. That'll be available for you in East Wichita or in Derby. Good luck to our first caller on the IHOP hotline to get that free tea and coffee from HTO. Jad will get us a winner, and we'll roll forward. Tim brought this up, and it made me recall, and I'm glad he did, because Jason Kelce apparently lost his Super Bowl ring in a pool, I should say, of Skyline chili. The gift that just keeps on giving, right?
Yeah.
He still hasn't found it, apparently. He doesn't know where it is. It's probably gone. It was a charity event, right? He was doing something where the goal was to find the ring in a big pot of chili or a pool of chili, and they couldn't find it. I don't know how the insurance calls are going to go on that, but yeah, I wasn't kidding when I said it to Fitz, Tommy. Like, these guys remind me so much of me and my brothers. Like, when we get together, we act like idiots. We have a great time. We embarrass our wives. We do all these things. I think that's the appeal. I think that's what it is. It feels like the rest of us, right?
I've got less of a problem with the antics of the Kelce brothers, and I've got more of a problem with Skyline Chili. Like, I can handle what the Kelce brothers are doing, but there's something about Skyline Chili that I can't get behind it. I'm just going to be critical of that more than the Kelce brothers.
I haven't had Skyline chili, I don't think.
Well, neither have I, but I'm not a fan. I mean, I can just tell you by looking at it, I don't want to try it.
Really? It's fantastic.
Is this a restaurant or is it like
there?
You don't know about Skyline Chili?
No, I mean, I've heard of it. It's a place, right?
No, it's a dish. It's spaghetti noodles, with chili on top instead of like the tomato, like marinara pasta sauce.
Also
That's
known
what
as
Skyline
but it's
Chili
also
is.
Cincinnati style.
Yeah.
But it's also the name of like a famous restaurant.
I'm sure
right?
it is.
Yeah.
But but now it's become like everywhere in Cincinnati. Like, it's the Cincinnati
All right.
thing is Skyline Chili.
So I'm looking here. So explain this. So you take spaghetti noodles,
correct,
and you put chili on top of spaghetti
right.
noodles,
instead
and it's
of
like cheese.
Yeah, instead of marinara sauce, it's chili on top of it with
Well,
cheese
what would be
and
wrong with
onions.
that?
And it just, I'm sure it tastes fine, because I like spaghetti and I like chili, but there's something that feels off about it to me. I feel like you're mixing two things that shouldn't be mixed.
I think if you put I think if you just took a regular bowl of spaghetti and dumped chili on top of it, it would probably be delicious.
That's
let
what
alone
it
without
is.
the marinara. No, I know, but you're saying without the marinara. I'm saying if you gave me a
Oh.
plate of spaghetti and a bowl of chili and I just put them together, I bet that would taste good. I'm a food mixer, though.
Yeah, see,
You're
I'm
not. This
I'm
is
not,
why
yeah.
we've had these debates before. This is why you're a soup or a stew hater,
Right.
is because you don't generally like the mixing
No.
of things. I'll mix anything together. Like, I want to know what it tastes like mixed together. If I've got a bit, like if we talked about Crestview earlier. If we go to one of their big, fancy buffets, I put it all on one plate.
Ugh.
I don't care if it touches.
No.
I want a little of the salad dressing to
Nope.
make its way over to the prime rib. Like,
Ugh.
I don't care. Maybe the potatoes au gratin mix in with, I don't know, whatever else is on there.
Count me
I am a
out.
food mixer. Just get it all in there. Put it all. You never know if something's going to taste good like that unless you try it.
My
right?
toddler has one of those plates that has the little compartments, like when you were in school,
No,
right?
I know.
I love
know.
those, and I'm jealous of him that he's got, like, I want some of those for me. My wife knows, like, when we have dinner, like if she's made dinner or whatever,
because you're a toddler.
She knows that I'm going to need a regular plate. I might need a bowl. I might need a small plate. I've got multiple different dishes on the table with like each thing. If I go to a buffet, like I've got to make sure they're not touching, or if it's something that's like runny or liquidy, gravy or whatever it is, dressing, it's got to be in a separate container, like a separate dish from everything else. I don't want it contaminating everything.
You mean to tell me that you don't, like, at a breakfast place, get over easy eggs and just get that egg yolk all over everything? Slather it up.
So I'll do that. Okay, so if it's like a savory, like if it's a bunch of savory things, like for a breakfast buffet, I'll do that. Like I'll put like biscuits and gravy, and I'll put gravy on like my sausage and on like the eggs and like things like that. But if I've got like fruit on there on the plate also, like I don't want the gravy to touch the fruit. Or here's another example for breakfast. if I've got pancakes or waffles, that syrup is going to go everywhere. I don't want that syrup on my eggs. So I'll have to do a separate.
what?
No, come on. Like I'll do
you
a
like
separate.
eggs?
I love eggs. I love
Do you
everything.
like syrup?
I do. I love everything individually. They're individual. So like I'll get a separate
Please
plate
tell me.
for the
Please
biscuits and
tell me
gravy
that you'll
or the
use
pancakes.
one fork for everything.
Typically I might switch forks. It's just, it kind of depends. I might switch utensils.
You really are. You're really a grown toddler. So, like when you go through a big buffet line, and let's say the line is long, right? It takes a minute to get through that. And you got all kinds of different stuff going. Like there's, over here you got some breakfast, and over here you got some lunch, and like whatever. It's all, but you don't like, you got to wait, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes to get through that line. How do you do that if you don't just pile it all onto one? You only got so many hands.
Well, there's a couple of different options. Number one, I might be willing to wait if it's something I really want. Like I might be willing to make 3 or 4 different trips and just wait in line and make everybody wait for me so I can have, I might do the salad first, then I might go get the breakfast stuff, and then I might go do the lunch stuff. Or if it's not that important to me, I'll just skip it. Not that big of a deal. I'll put everything on a plate that I want, that I feel okay with. But I've been known to turn things down in a buffet line that I like individually because I'm concerned it's going to touch everything else. And it would just ruin the entire meal for me.
Well, listen, I will tell you this. You probably fare much better at a formal dinner setting. I embarrass my wife thoroughly when I just lick off one fork.
Yeah, and I'm the
dig into
toddler.
the next thing.
And I'm the grown toddler. Okay.
Well, I this is how my kids eat.
You
You're
wear a
describing
bib
how my
too?
kids eat, not a grown man who's just like, well, let me just get this fork, I'll lick it off, and I'll go on to the next thing.
Use your
no,
shirt sleeve to wipe your mouth. I mean, come on.
Don't ask
You
that question. You might not
Neanderthal.
like the answer. You might not like the answer to that. That's why it's interesting that I do end up in some of these finer establishments now, because it is not the way I grew up.
Because you're a caveman.
And yeah, and it's not. This isn't something that my mom would also be embarrassed for me. But like, I have 4 older brothers. Like both parents are working. When it's time to saddle up to the food table, you better get in there and get after it, or you're going to get left behind. And so it's kind of hard to let that stuff go. Jad, are you a food mixer?
Yes.
First and foremost, thank you for not being a psychopath. Are you a one fork kind of guy?
Yeah. Easily.
Yeah, just lick it off and get after it. If you're a food mixer, of course, why wouldn't you be, right? Like, why would I don't need to waste water and have 2 dishes be cleaned when I've got a perfectly good fork right here in my hand. I'll just, get after it with that.
The way I
One
see
proposition for Tommy, real quick.
Yeah, tell me.
Yeah. Chicken and waffles.
I do like chicken and waffles. I'm a chicken and waffles fan.
Okay.
I'll do that.
But how do you think somebody discovered chicken and waffles?
Probably
their waffles and their fried chicken and their syrup all
probably
touched
because
each other.
the syrup touched the chicken and they thought it was
So
pretty
you're
good. I understand
missing
that.
out on so many things.
I feel like
potentially
everything
mixing
I feel
together.
like everything
Do
that
you
could,
like the
everything that could
do you
be
like the
discovered has
KFC
already
famous
been
bowl?
discovered. No, I don't like the KFC famous bowl.
where they put the chicken
Yeah,
on the
no.
mashed potatoes and the corn?
No, I'm not a fan of that.
That's the best.
The way that I see it too is that if I'm like at a restaurant, if I use a second fork, it's not really my problem. I don't have to do the dishes. But if I'm at home, like we've got plastic utensils sometimes that I'm like, okay, well, look, if I don't want to dirty another dish, if I've got to go get a second fork, that's okay. But I'd rather them be plastic so we can just toss them when it's all done.
Man, I never thought I'd be the one with the, save the planet lecture going here. But come on now, just use the same fork. We don't need extra forks in the landfill.
I can't do it.
Yeah, I can't. That I'll tell you, it took a long time for my wife to guilt me or lecture me into taking the napkin and putting it on my lap first thing.
Did you tuck it in your
No, I
shirt?
left it on the table. I left it on the table,
okay,
and then would just grab it and dab away whenever I maybe got a little mustard on the side of my mouth. Just grab that napkin and get after it.
Right.
But I put it on my lap first thing when you sit down at the table. I'm not incapable of these things. I just mix it all together.
My younger brother, and so you've got older brothers. I have a younger brother, but there was one area that he would torture me because he didn't care about food mixing. He was totally fine with it. He would do things just to gross me out. and
of
like
course
he would take a banana and squeeze a bunch of ketchup on it and just eat it in front of me. And I learned later in life, we were both adults, and he was like, yeah, it was disgusting, but I did it because it got a rise out of you and you thought it was awful. And he goes, I didn't like it either, but I did it just to torment you. I'm like, great, thank you. I appreciate that.
Think about all these, like peanut butter and jelly, Tommy, doesn't exist without the pioneering nature.
That's
of
a sandwich.
My fellow
that's
food
different.
mixers.
I can like make a sandwich and have things mixed
but
in a sandwich. That's different.
You just said banana. You just said bananas and ketchup. Not that I think that would be good, but the original peanut butter and jelly, hey guys, you know what might be good? A little salty, a little sweet. Let's throw that in a sandwich. Peanut butter and jelly. I'm sure there were Tommy Castors at the time thumbing their nose at the pioneers of the early peanut butter and jelly sandwich, the early peanut butter and honey sandwich.
I don't blame them. I would have done the same thing.
Ketchup and mustard mixed together on a hamburger or a hot dog is incredible. The fact that they might put a little cheese on chili. Why not? The chili cheese dog. Come on now.
Mike on our video stream says that food mixes in the belly, so it's no big deal. Yes, but it has to pass through your taste buds first. And that's what's important to me. I want to make sure that like I've got, the right combination on those taste buds before it actually mixes in my belly.
If we have some kind of like nuclear fallout, you're never going to survive.
No, I'll be the first to go.
Guys.
I will be. I wholeheartedly admit I'll be the first to go.
It might be better to be the first to go. Let's go to Charlie on the line, 869-1240, wants to chime in. Charlie, welcome into Sports Daily. What's on your mind?
Good morning, guys. How you guys doing?
Good.
Pretty good.
Hey, Tommy, there is a adult-sized plate, adult-sized plate that you can get it. It's either plastic or it comes in cardboard type, wooden or paper plate, so I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And it does have the separate container or compartments that you can put your food in.
I love it. I would do it. In fact, and this is something like I'm going to give this idea out free of charge to the world. Somebody, and I don't know if this exists or not. Somebody there ought to be like a fine, like China manufacturer that makes really nice dinnerware that has those compartments, like a formal dinner, really beautiful. Like you put in a China cabinet, you only bring it out when it's a really special occasion, but it's got those compartments. That's what we're missing in this world because people like me, Charlie, we're discriminated against. Like you can give me a plastic plate or a paper plate that's got the compartments while everybody else is eating on the fine china. And then I just feel inferior. If you had like an actual fine china version of that, that would make billions of dollars. I guarantee you.
Well, either that or you can just be a big boy and pull up your big boy pants and go.
There it is. Thank you.
Thanks for your call, Charlie. Get this guy off the line.
I was just about to get on to you, Charlie, for enabling. But that was a nice, well-delivered moment there. Get the big boy. That's right. Get the big boy pants on and mix the food up.
Jack, can we ban Charlie from the show?
No.
Let's get Charlie a regular spot for when we have these discussions. You can't let my food touch. This all started with Skyline Chili. Now I want to try Skyline Chili.
You
got a good recipe?
It's fantastic.
Send it to us.
I'll pass.
I am 100% confident that I'll like it because who doesn't like spaghetti noodles and who doesn't like chili? And putting chili on spaghetti noodles sounds delightful.
And I feel like I need to clarify. I'm not a picky eater. I mean, look at me. Like I like food. I like a lot. I'll try almost anything. If I like it, I don't want the flavors to mix with something else.
It'll just take you 9 hours to get through a buffet line.
That's fine with me.
Because you need 36 plates.
It's all you can eat.
19 forks.
It's all you can eat. Do they kick you out if you stay too long? I don't think they do.
You don't take pride in like a one plate buffet line. Like you only get one plate.
Why? Like
just
why?
Load that thing up like a ice cream sundae full of all kinds of goodness.
You can go back as many times as you want. Like
no, I'm saying a one plate. Maybe you've got a little salmon in there, and you just where am I going to put this cantaloupe? Well, I'll just stick it right there on top of the salmon. Chocolate chip cookie, just kind of tuck it, wedge it down in the bottom. You get it all in there at the same time. Sounds delicious. Welcome into Sports Daily, everybody. 869-1240. That's the IHOP hotline. You can weigh in on this conversation if you'd like. We'll come back and continue, among other things, next. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Steve chimes in. How about Sloppy Joe on spaghetti or canned sardines with saltine crackers? Sloppy Joe on spaghetti would be delicious. I'm not a sardine guy, I don't think. So that one I'd be out on just because I don't like sardines, not because I wouldn't put them on a saltine. I just don't like sardines really that much. But Sloppy Joe on spaghetti, heck yeah. I'm in on that, Steve.
I like Sloppy Joes. I like spaghetti. I'm not sure I would like Sloppy Joe on spaghetti. Like, they're two separate things. Keep them separate. Now, I haven't had them in a long time. It's probably been 25 years. My grandpa used to eat sardines with saltine crackers, and they weren't bad. I don't remember hating it. Not that I would rush out there and go do it right now, but yeah, I did it before. I'd probably, if it was in front of me, I'd probably try it again.
I don't know if I like it. I can't remember. I know that I've had it. I don't remember if I like it. One of my family, we missed, it was Christmas. There's I guess this fish that really, like, it has this smell, kind of like a sardine that comes in cans now, and like a pickled herring or something. And so the game is to try to see if you can eat it without gagging. And my whole family did that. All my nieces and nephews and my brothers. And I was so sad I missed it because the video was amazing. It was incredible.
Are you talking about surstrumming?
Maybe. Is it
because
does it have like
that's Swedish fermented Baltic herring?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's what, and like you open the can, and if you can not vomit, you win the contest or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Or at least gag.
Swedish.
Yeah, I was sad to miss that because the whole family did it, and it was hilarious. And of course, all my nephews are trying to show how tough they are and get through it. And oh man, I think of sardines when I think of that though. So I need to give them another. I need to probably give them another try, or anchovies. Right, like some people are.
I don't mind anchovies. I've done those before too, but yeah, I'm a seafood guy. I like fish. And
I love seafood,
shrimp, and crab.
I love seafood.
I love oyster guy. I'll eat raw oysters all day long. I love that stuff.
I don't mind raw oysters. I don't understand the point of them as much, but I don't mind them. I need to become probably an oyster guy because I do love seafood also. And like it's a cool thing. Right, just the process of eating them. I had some baked ones that were fine. I need
fried ones are good
again.
too.
All those things.
There's nothing like raw oysters though. You get a little bit of horseradish and maybe some cocktail sauce, some lemon, maybe a cracker.
Yeah,
they're great.
I need to get into oysters again. I heard, aren't they like an aphrodisiac too?
Well,
I think. Take the wife out for some oysters.
I don't want to talk out of turn here.
Yes, they
are.
I'm
kidding. I have no idea.
No pillow talk. No, that's another appeal. So I've heard. You said fried oysters. How do you feel about calf fries?
I've actually never had
Rocky Mountain.
Never had
Rocky Mountain oysters.
Never actually had them. But you know what? I'm not opposed to it because again, I'm not.
They're
picky.
delicious.
I'm not picky.
They're delicious.
I
say delicious. I don't know that they're delicious. They're fine. They taste like chicken nuggets. Yeah. I mean, we'd take them right from the bowl. Back home, you run them through, you throw them in a bucket, and you fry them up. And
I thought you meant bowl, like a plate and bowl.
Nope,
I didn't.
Nope, BULL bowl.
Chop them right off and throw them right into the frying pan.
Chop them off, throw them in a bucket, and throw them right into the fryer. Yep, and they're fine. Like they're not bad. I mean, I always say they kind of taste like a chicken nugget, but a chicken nugget tastes better. So I mean, they're not bad. They're not good. They're not really anything. They're fine. I've had far more of those in my life than real oysters. I need to get in on the oyster game for sure. I feel like I could be an oyster guy if I would just do it. I definitely think that's something I could do. This all started because Jason Kelce lost his Super Bowl ring in a vat of Skyline chili. It's only going to add to the appeal. My question is when you turn in that insurance claim, is that claimable? Is losing your jewelry in a pool of chili something that the insurance company is going to be like, yeah, you know what? We'll get you a new one. Don't worry about it. I don't know. I don't think that they would.
I don't think they would either. I mean, I feel like that's, you kind of your own fault, right? I mean, there are a lot of different things, a lot of different ways you could lose that ring that maybe aren't your fault. Losing in a Nevada Skyline chili, that might be up there.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to go for that. That ain't going to happen. Well, good luck to him. If the ring company's smart and they want the publicity, they'll just make him another one. Or if the Eagles are smart, they'll just make him another one. Again, I'm pretty sure this had to do with charity. Even if it didn't have to do with charity, they should definitely do that. So NBA playoffs, Tommy, real quick. We're through these play-ins, or we get to finish off the play-ins, I think. You got Bulls Heat tonight. You've got Kings Pelicans. I think the most interesting thing that has happened so far is the death of the Golden State dynasty. We don't talk a ton of NBA. It was a great dynasty. Is it time to break that up, or do you keep trying to add to it? I don't think you break it up. Just from the fans' perspective, having those guys there, I don't think you break it up. But I mean, I think from a basketball perspective, it's justifiable.
I mean, what direction are they going to go if they break it up? I mean, you're going to be talking about then, a rebuild. And, I know Steph Curry's getting up there in age. And so, Klay Thompson, I think that they recommitted to him, basically said that, he wasn't going to go anywhere. So I don't think they're going to break it up necessarily. But, we are looking at, I think the end of the dynasty happened before now. We're in it. We've been in it for a minute now. They're clearly not as dominant as they used to be. So, yeah, I think you've got to start looking at the future and what's going to happen with that franchise long term and start making plans for that.
I wonder what the fan base would think about not having the Splash Brothers there. Like if it was a made decision to break that up, that would be interesting. That would be very interesting. We'll tell you what's coming up on the network today when we return for our final segment of Sports Daily.
We all expect our home to protect everything we love. But here in Kansas, we don't expect the ways water breaks down our basements and damages our homes. Mold, cracks, and of course, visible water are just a few signs your basement is compromised. But there's one way to get answers to all your concerns. A free home inspection from Groundworks, the nation's leading and fastest growing foundation and water management solutions company. They put water back in its place. Go to groundworks.com now.
Is switching your wireless service to Total by Verizon easy? And you get unlimited 5G data, $25 a line for 4 lines on the unlimited plan, at an amazing price with no contracts. Should you switch to Total by Verizon? Definitely. Find a store or switch suavemente at totalbyverizon.com. Monthly rate when you activate your auto pay plus taxes and fees discount begins the month after you enroll. Additional terms apply. See website for data management practices.
Toppers Plus Truck and RV will hook you up for trailer and RV season. Get receiver hitches, goosenecks, fifth wheel hitches, brake controllers, and trailer wiring to ease the towing of your boat, cycle, RV, or lawn equipment. Choose from top brands of hitches, including B&W hitches, Kurt, and Draw Type. Need to take your vehicle camping with you? Toppers Plus has Blue Ox base plates and tow bars. Get trailer season ready at Toppers Plus Truck and RV, 333 Northwest Street, or toppersplusks.com. Make the truck work for you!
Wouldn't it be nice to feel in control of all aspects of your retirement planning? Having a team looking out for you and with you to cover all the bases? At Market Advisory Group, we have that team with professionals guiding the way through the aspects of financial, estate, tax, and Medicare planning, all under one roof. Learn more and even schedule a review of your current plan with us at marketadvisorygroup.com.
Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
McCurdy Real Estate and Auction is proud to present our April 25th multi-property live stream auction event with online-only bidding. The auction features 39 properties and will take place on McCurdy.com at 5:30 p.m. on Thursday, April 25th. All properties will be open to view and tour on Sunday, April 21st from 1 to 5 p.m. Investment properties are in demand, so much so that we added another multi-property auction to our calendar. This is a fantastic opportunity to expand your portfolio with homes located in Southeast Wichita. For details and pictures of all 39 properties, visit McCurdy.com, where our favorite word is sold.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
This story is called The Ugly Truth About Timeshare. If you think you've done your family a favor by buying a timeshare, you need my help. Hello, I'm Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group. 10 years ago, I started helping folks cancel their timeshare. In the process, started what's now called the timeshare cancellation industry. The ugly truth is when you buy a timeshare, you can't tell me how much it's going to cost or when it's going to end. I recently helped a couple that had their maintenance fees go from $800 to $3,200 a year. They also received a $4,000 assessment for a hurricane that was over 1,000 miles away. Sound crazy? crazy thing is, this never ends. Call my office now. If we take you as a client, I guarantee we'll cancel your timeshare or you'll pay nothing.
Call for your free information kit. Call 800-462-3333. That's 800-462-3333. 800-462-3333.
The KFH Studios, powered by Devon James Injury Lawyers. Call 888-8888. That's 888-8888.
College bowling, the Intercollegiate Singles Championships continue in Louisville, Kentucky. 3 Wichita State bowlers have advanced into the Final Four for the men and the women, still alive for a national championship individually in college bowling. 2 Wichita State bowlers on the men's side are into the Final Four on Saturday, senior Ryan Barnes and freshman Braden Malish. And on the women's side, shocker freshman from Columbia, Sarah Duque, has advanced into the Final Four on Saturday as well. Pro basketball here in town tonight. The Wichita Sky Kings with a home game. 7 o'clock tip-off at Newman tonight, hosting the Shreveport Mavericks. Major League Baseball, the Kansas City Royals split a doubleheader yesterday on the south side of Chicago against the bottom team in the major leagues, the White Sox. The Royals won the opener 4-2. You heard that one here on KFH. The Royals lose the nightcap 2-1 for the doubleheader split. The Royals are off today, just a half game out of first place in the division behind Cleveland. I'm Ted, the Sports Head. College baseball, Wichita State on the road in conference play this weekend, visiting a top 10 team. Wichita State at East Carolina. The Shockers and the Pirates. Mike Kennedy has live coverage at 4:45 Friday afternoon, right here on 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, that's it for us, everybody. No Royals today, no baseball, so you've got regular Infinity Sports Network programming. And Bob and Jeff here locally from 2 to 4. Jim Rome follows us immediately there. Appreciate everybody being a part of the show today, our callers, our commenters on our video streams. We'll be back with a Friday edition tomorrow. We'll see you then. For Jad and Tommy, I'm Jacob.